Hi, welcome back. This is Kimile, and you're listening to Heal with Kimile podcast. Today, I want to talk about perspective and how that is so important when you're going through a storm. In life, you can imagine a boat adrift on the ocean, and it's just adrift. It's great. It's there. No problems unless the water gets in. And that's how life is. So when you're living life and you've got some stressful things happening, you're great as long as you can maintain that perspective, which is just the ebb and flow. Things are okay. And if the water gets in, if the emotion gets to you, if you get triggered, if you get hooked, now you're not okay. So what do you do when you've got crises just coming at you? Maybe it's not your crises. Maybe it's your people around you that you love are going through so much and you're worried about them. How do you manage that? And then this is where I'm a firm believer in prayer. And so a lot of it is you get to learn how to give it up. Like, what are you capable of doing? Can you cause a miracle? Can you save someone's life? Or do you need help from unseen powers and unseen angels? And can prayer lift the burden off of you? So I feel like when we are going through the worst trials of our life, we aren't alone. And I have a case in point, a young man who's had some physical problems, the last 5 years, went through quite a bit, but has found himself addicted to a substance. And this is common, right? Surgeries, painkillers, etc. And it's also a surgery that, made him have to realize he felt like an old man. His low back was paralyzed, his pelvic floor paralyzed. So had zero mobility at 30. And so when you go through that kind of a trauma, you kind of feel like maybe you're nobody, or your junk doesn't work, can't walk, who's going to want you? And you've been an athlete before that. Quite a traumatic event, I would say. Learn how to walk again, learn how to, be incontinent. I mean, just deal with all sorts of stuff with that low back problem. So finding himself on pain medication, figuring out how to make himself feel better. And drugs are always there, right? It's amazing when you look at addiction. It's the alcohol or the pills or meth or whatever. All of that stuff is always there. It's predictable. It will take your pain away. But then if you drive and do things when you're on it, you get DUIs and you get in trouble. So it literally can be a painkiller and a life taker. And I do feel like when people want to hide out in an addiction or hide out with their pain relief, look, there's need for it in the beginning of surgery or something. I understand that. But if people live on these medications or they live on painkillers or drugs or alcohol, the numbing out isn't a lifelong success story. You aren't growing, you're not developing. And if you want to keep hiding and running from the pain, I'm talking more emotionally, but I think that there's ways to deal with physical pain that isn't drug solution either. But when you've got something that happens, if you want to just keep hiding out and not dealing with yourself, then it feels like, and I watch it all the time, the addiction takes hold. And if you're going to be drifting, just drift along like driftwood, and you're not really directed or have a purpose in life, men and women, you're likely to fall prey to something coming in and taking you over and utilizing your body for whatever purposes. And I see people go through this all the time with their young people, and there is the panic that sets in when addiction takes hold. And how do they stay afloat on that water without letting the water get in and just ruining everything? Like the whole ship could go down if they don't maintain their composure. And if they don't maintain their life, you got to keep working. You've got to keep taking care of your other children. You've got to take care of yourself. If you're not sleeping, if you're not eating, if you're just stressed out and you're crying all the time because you're worried sick, worry really is something that can make you sick. So when that starts happening, when life happens to people, there is a practice, and it is what I do. When I have this practice, I have to look at the situation. And if I believe, oh, this is awful, this is, going to ruin, it's terrible. The minute I judge it, the minute I make it wrong, that's me letting the water in. That's me letting something get to me. Now I'm at the effect. It owns me. It runs me. This is bigger and more powerful than me. And it's not. It really isn't. But you have to maintain that perspective of, what if this is the way it's supposed to be? What if this is a good idea? What if this is going to end up being the best thing that ever happened? Maybe a DUI is the best thing that your kid could have gone through. Now we have something stopping that behavior. They're taken out of a car that they could have killed themselves with or somebody else. So I think things happen for a reason. I really, really do. And the perspective, again, is the most critical part of it, is not to let it roller coaster you and get in so that you are at the effect of that. It's really painful as parents to watch our kids suffer and to watch our kids have to face life consequences for their choices, for what they've gone through. And I find that teenagers that are hitting 17, 18 years old, they're ready to launch. They're getting ready to launch, I should say. When they hit 18, they graduate high school. It's a tense time. And if they don't have parents that want them to launch and realize they got to let go, take their hands off the steering wheel and let that kid fail maybe on his own. And like I've got one kid that's, failing high school. They're kicking him out. He's got to do an alternative version. It's his junior year. Maybe he can get back into his other high school when he gets just caught up in some other, packets or whatever. But the parents are having a freak out. They're kind of melting down because they can't let him fail. But if they don't let him fail, if they come in and save the day, like they always have, probably because they love their kid, and this is what we all do. If they don't let him fail and have to fight for a solution for himself and fight to graduate, see, it's being taken from him. He doesn't care. And so when the parents care more than the child cares about something, kid just kind of watches, videos and plays on his computer and plays on his phone. And that drives the parents crazy because he's not motivated. He doesn't care to get himself working like this. But you have to let go of the rope. You have to let go of that power struggle. And again, you want him to fail on your watch. And if he fails, he's getting kicked out of school. That's kind of a big idea. It's a big deal. But for him, what's that going to cause? That's a consequence, natural consequence for his behavior. Getting a DUI if you're driving high or drunk. Natural consequence for that choice and that behavior. That child, that man, that young person, whoever it is, that is in, quote, trouble, getting kicked out, getting fired, getting a DUI, that person now has consequences coming to them that they need it. They need in their life or they won't change. So that's why I'm saying, what if this is a good idea? What if this is maybe the best thing that could happen to that young man getting kicked out of high school? Because now he's got to fight for something. Does he really want to graduate? Maybe he's taking it for granted. Maybe he's, his parents help him with homework all the time. He's not generating himself. He's not in charge of it. And it's painful to not have your graduation. It's painful to not walk with your class. But is that pain going to teach us? You hear it all the time in the gym, no pain, no gain. I know in life that's true. Without some sort of pain and dealing with consequences, people don't change. People have to get a gut full of something. They have to they're just sick of it. And that's really the number one motivator for change. Necessity is the mother of invention. So if you've got a kid sitting in jail because they've had, 2 recent brushes with police, and so they go to jail and then they get out and they use something again and then go to jail again because they get caught with the same thing. This is someone who needs a wake-up call. This is definitely the universe knocking, saying, time for you to stop this behavior or it's going to get you killed. And I think there was a car wreck. There was a car wreck that could have killed him. And again, how does the parent deal with this? If they let that water in, because mom's just a wreck, went to the ER thinking she was having a heart attack. Now she's just having a heartbreak. Her heart's just bursting for this beautiful young man. But I've got to keep her going. I can't let her fall apart. And this young man is going to look at either jail or treatment. And it's got to be a long enough treatment. I've been in this game long enough with addicts and stuff. It has to be a long enough consequence. And look, addicts don't change. The nature of an addict is they have to lie, because if they admit they're on cocaine or meth or whatever, then there's an automatic distrust of people that are on drugs because they're not really in charge of themselves. They're, again, drifting along. Something else is running them. The addiction's running them, and they can't survive without their fix. But this is probably the best thing for him, is to have to sit in jail and think and get rid of that demon, that drug demon that just wants him to use. I'm sure it's driving him crazy. And again, he's got a physical disability. So it feels impossible. It feels awful. And on some level, he put himself here because he's ready for change. And so the parents get to get on board with that. But the enabling, we as parents, because we love them, we enable. We don't want them in pain. We want to stop their crying. We want to salve their ache. We want to make them feel better. Then when we feel better, like that's our nature. So it's important that if an addict is ready for change and they need to change, or they're going to go to prison or something, then they have to change their environment. Without a change of environment, you change the people. You don't have the same phone. You don't get better. You have to change your environment to get better. People don't get sober without a long-term solution, like a year-long sobriety program, a year-long living sobriety space that does put you through counseling. You have medication if you need it, but you've also got a 12-step. You've also got a spiritual program, that you have other addicts that you're there with doing the work. And the work is on yourself. The work is on looking how you got yourself here, how you wound up being this way. Near death, really. If you had a drug addict, that person's near death. And all this stuff, right now, I mean, there's been so many young people that die accidentally when they're just smoking pot or something, and it's laced with fentanyl. There's so many young people that die, stupidly over nothing, right? Again, drugs to me are very dangerous, and that's a high risk lifestyle. But if a person doesn't leave their environment and get away from the people they used with, the dealers, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, whoever they were partying with, they won't change. They can't change. Especially with something like meth or heroin, you need help to get off that stuff. You need to have kind of a facility that you go to, and you have to have experts there that know all the rackets, the deceptions, the trickery, the tears, all that stuff. They have to be able to call that person out and hold that space for them to maintain their sobriety. And it takes one day at a time. And sometimes it's a minute at a time. When you're jonesing, when you're coming off this stuff, you're not yourself. I mean, I work with the Beacon House. It's a nonprofit in San Pedro, California, and they treat men only. It's a men only program, but they treat addicts. And this young man I'm talking about is actually going to go there. He's supposed to catch a flight. He's got to go straight from jail to the airport. No stopping anywhere. Court ordered. Either that or, 60 days in jail. So he's got a year-long commitment coming. That's the minimum they take these men. But it does transform their lives. If they work the program, they get benefit, they get value. I've seen it. I've done some training out there with them. And I feel like it's an incredible program, but it is sober living. And you have to learn to live a whole new life. And the cool thing is they do vocational rehabilitation. If there's education they need, at the end of their process, they'll help them clean up their credit. They'll help them buy a car, and it'll be in that person's, the man's name. They get training, they get education, they learn skills, they learn how to live without needing anybody. They become independent totally and accountable. And they also have to have $2,000 minimum in their bank account. So they earn something. It's not a lot because they're getting a free program. It's free for them, but not for the taxes, et cetera. But we have a lot of donors. But I do feel like these long-term places are the answer. 30 days, 60 days. I just haven't seen a lot of good results from the short-term rehabilitation centers. I see many breakthroughs and lifelong success stories from long-term living sober facilities. So the Beacon House is a great one. If anybody needs information on that, I'd be happy to refer you. But getting back to the point of maintaining your perspective, if your perspective can be in the world, we're all down here to learn something. We're all going through a school called life, and everyone's got their own choices to make. And even your children have their choices to make. And if they fail something, if they mess up, if we stay out of the way and we continue to stand for them and believe in them and hold the space for them to get it, they will eventually get it. It might seem like forever. I mean, this gentleman I'm talking about earlier, it's been 5 years. It's a struggle with stuff for 5 years. So it's do or die, and it's up to him. And the only way he's going to find self-respect is if he does it on his own. No one can do it for you. No one can process your pain. No one can deal with your trauma. You have to take it on yourself. You've got to deal with your own trauma. You've got to deal with your own mistakes, your own accountability, your own harm. You've self-harmed. You've harmed others. You've got to deal with that. And it sometimes takes being plucked out of your life and put in a facility, a rehab facility, where you get to take yourself on, look at that man in the mirror and absorb all the pain, finally digest it. And with a team of experts, get yourself back on track where you can find a life that you love to live. But if you're a support person, if you're a parent of a young person going through a failure, it might look like a failure in their life. This is some sort of movement. Believe in the process of transformation. They need the pain. They need to be sitting there dealing with themselves, or they won't get a gut full of their crap and they won't change. And it's hard to know when to push, when to pull. If they're younger, you maybe do it for them. You have to. You've got to show them, things. But when they get a little older, again, this kid's 17 that's got kicked out of high school, and it's just for late attendance, and it's absentees. It's not because he's not doing all the work; he's doing some of the work. But again, he's not motivated, and so if he's not going to take it on, they're going to have a consequence for him. Let that natural consequence happen to the full effect. He needs to deal with what's he going to do. What's his options? Not parents jumping into action, finding where they're going to put him and make him. He's going to, okay, well, let him be part of the solution, because if not, you're just doing it to him. He's not feeling anything. He's just feeling, the power struggle with his parents, or, okay, mom, dad'll do it for me. I'm off the hook. I'll just go here now. No, he needs to generate himself. Let him generate himself, And even this young man going to rehab, he's got to generate his breakthrough. Until they get living on their own steam, they're not going to be autonomous or independent. They're not going to figure out they are strong. They're not going to see their worth. And so this is really important that you actually believe in this is progress. Somehow the change in the behavior, some sort of breakdown, is progress, because there's a breakthrough at the end of that breakdown. And if you believe in your child, and if you believe in the people you love and support, you'll hold that space for that to happen. Because they need to be the one going, oh my gosh, oh no. They need to be feeling the impact. And if they're feeling the impact, perfect. You don't have to. You can just go, yay, good. They're feeling it finally. They're living it. And this means they're going to want to change it. If they get hurt bad enough, they will change it. But your perspective has to be, I'm going to be supportive of their choices. And I will be there for them, fanning, feeding grapes, believing in them, telling them they can do it, cheering them on. But you cannot carry them. You can't die on the trail. You've got to let them have their pain, let them have their breakdown, and then support them with the breakthrough. Don't interfere. Don't get in the way. Let it happen. So if any of this stuff I'm talking about could help you, or if you know someone who's an addict and going through a crisis and you need a place to send them, I know a good place. You can get a hold of me. It's my website at healwithkimile.com. That's HEAL with KIMILE.com. You can book a session with me there. Thank you for listening. Bye.